Yeah, so, Gary, it's really interesting topic we have to talk about IT and data architecture in the advent of agentic AI. Do you think that should we think differently when we start looking at how we leverage data and IT architectures with agentic AI? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, AI moves very fast, and there are a lot of things going on. Even now, every week is changing, and the latest frontier models. If you what a frontier model is just the main providers like OpenAI, Gemini. So there are probably 5, 6, no more than that. So all of those big vendors of generative AI are pretty much leapfrogging each other every week. And lately, they're putting a lot of emphasis on agentic AI. All right, so these new models are having a lot of reasoning and iterations and so on. Some of them are more expensive than others. But then, how do you translate that into the enterprise, right? So that's something that for the last couple of years, multiple companies have been trying to implement. The whole agentic space also has changed, I believe, from multiple POCs, and most of them will fail, to sloppy agents. Most of them were sloppy just a few months ago or years ago. So all is a very fast space to be around, and us as data leaders, we also need to catch up with all of that. It's a challenging times for architecture point of view as well.
Yes, definitely. Just to build on top of what you just mentioned. Yes, I think most of us have worked in AI for maybe a few decades. We have used supervised and unsupervised machine learning models, statistical machine learning for a long time, same as reinforcement learning or deep learning methodologies. But I think the biggest difference compared to that, those models are primarily question and answer model, computational focus models. For example, very simple example, predict a stock price of a particular stock. Yes, it uses narrow set of data and predict the price. So you ask a question, it gives a answer. But I think whereas the clear differentiation between agentic AI and traditional AI is agentic AI is more goal driven. It's more close to humans. Rather than asking a question. So that creates a bigger problem. So to answer so for example, instead of asking to predict a stock price, I would say, I might have this much of stock, I might have this much of in US dollars in my account. Can you look at the stock market? I'm interested in high-tech companies. Can you come with an investment portfolio? So that has a significant multiply, exponentially growing the number of parameters and dimensions to look at. So an agentic model needs to look at, okay, based on the question I asked, it needs to understand and interpret and really understand what it means, break it down the problem to subsequent smaller steps, and also plan what I should be doing. Okay, I need to predict, I need to source stock data, I need to look at the market predictions, I look at different things, fundamental analysis, things like that. So it needs to plan and execute a lot of things to come into that step, sequential and parallel, and then execute and then measure and learn. So there's a significantly bigger set of activities it needs to do it rather than just running a set of data through a model and giving an outcome. So that, I think, creates a bigger, more complex dimensionality with respect to how data and IT architecture needs to expand to support this goal-oriented AI as well. So I think that's a difference. So do you think I have views on how data and IT actually needs to change? Do you have any views on how
exactly
differently?
Mm-hmm. So these ages, as you were saying, just to build on what you were saying, is not only about predicting the next token anymore. So these agentic Gen AI models, they have the capability to reason apparently and to self-improve through multiple feedback loops. So with all of that, what do we do in the enterprise, right? I guess that's the question, that's the challenge. And if we refer to the 2025 impact report that Debbie and team worked, you will see interesting that most of the answer from the survey and implementations at the enterprise level are not necessarily looking for, at the moment, for agentic AI. Top 3 initiatives are mainly for 2026 will be old-fashioned reporting, BI, again, data strategy, and architecture, right? So those are kind of the fundamental pieces in terms of needs, what data AI leaders are kind of worrying at the moment. And then at the bottom, you will see agentic AI, even I think ethical AI as well was there. So that is kind of an interesting contrast. But maybe that might be a call if for data leaders to stay a little bit more tuned with what's happening, right? These models advance so fast that it is very difficult to catch up again, of course. It's not just that you will bring an architecture or a system and then you implement it, right? So you need to go through, depending on the size of your company, if you have procurement, you need to get the leadership buy-in. You need to, of course, have just use cases. You need to have your users that will actually use that. So that there are a lot of things going on there. And more importantly, if we go down to architecture, for me, I think everything comes down to foundations. Right? So what is the foundation of AI? It's just data. Do we have good data? And what do we need to have good data is to have, again, an old-fashioned data warehouse. Is data integrated? Is it curated? Is it cleansed? A data warehouse, data lake, however you want to call it. If you have that, you can say this is a first step to have AI-ready data. Once you have that, then you will be able to provide more context for your AI applications. And it's not that anymore tabular data, right? DGI models can handle documents. You have all the OCR. And they are getting better and better. They can read charts from a PDF that is scanned. They can analyze trends from charts, scan documents. So it's going to be a myriad of different data types that the architectures need to support in order to keep upgrading the data platforms.
That's definitely a really good point. So I think just to add on some of that. So, I mean, the comparison of traditional data architectures been there for decades has been, or IT architectures traditionally been system of records. You have a CRM, trading systems, ERPs, pretty much acting as the system of records, and also driven through human-centric workflows, governed through extremely rigid human processes. That's going to be the traditional systems. But with agentic AI, I think all of us from a data and technology side needs to think differently, because to make decisions, it needs to look at much more data, much more better quality curated data sets, and the meaning of the data is really important as well, the semantical meaning and the metadata, because agentic system needs to interpret and rightly interpret the data rather than hallucinating or confabulating the meaning of the data. So that's, I think, better data, understanding of the data is much, much more important than maybe before, because a small misunderstanding can have significantly bigger repercussions. And also, I think the other thing is the more of the orchestration, ability to orchestrate data and orchestrate tooling. Like the stock example, it needs to look at different tools. I need to go and check this price. I want to look at the market, things like that. So it needs to determine what is this flow of events I need to orchestrate and which sequence makes sense. So that's an additional complexity. And also the other aspects which we do not have is the accountability segregation. So what are we going to let the agentic AI platform decide versus what the humans going to decide? Where are the circuit breakers? Where is the guardrails, which are very important? It can't go and run, make its decision on its own. So really need to have controls to break the automated flows. And also the explainability is really key. It should not be treated as a black box. We, as engineers, need to understand why you are suggesting this. I think those are really critical things we need to, I think, bake into the data and the IT architecture. Those are, I think, the fundamental improvements we should not forget. And just treating agentic AI as a black box, that's the really a wrong thing to do. I think,
definitely. I couldn't agree more. In terms of building or enabling this application, not necessarily building, right? I think we as a data practitioners, AI practitioners or leaders, we should offer different kind of solutions, right? So it's exciting to build in-house, but then better you might look some vendors that already have that. And it will all come down also to the policies of your companies and models that you can use or maybe you cannot use, depending on constraints and so on. But business context is always very important to fit to your models. You can ingest data, whatever, but business domain context, if your application, your agentic AI doesn't have that, then it will fail. It will be sloppy, and it will give you pretty much nonsense. And that's the dangerous part, right? So when you release something, enable, publish to production, and then you have then the end users using that, and if you get wrong answers, even if your data is good, you might get, because remember, this is all stochastic outputs. Eventually, you will get wrong answers. So that's the dangerous part, where as you mentioned, all the guardrails component, explainability will come into place. That is very important.
That's great. I think both of us are really excited to be a part of the AI Fest panel. And again, to remind everybody, AI Fest is happening on the 2nd of February next year in Dubai. So hurry up, research it up, and do remember to register.
Yep. See you soon, everyone.